Hello, welcome to Coaster Nerd Weekly. So today's video is I'm going to be doing my top 10 coasters as of the end of April 2021. And if you're wondering what this hat is, it's my roller coaster hat that I made for a school project, believe it or not. And I'll wear it like in the intros of videos, but I'm probably going to take it off now because it's kind of uncomfortable. I'm going to need to fix it soon. But yeah, so if you see it again, that's because it's my coaster hat. So before we start the top 10 list, I'm just going to give out an honorable mention because I couldn't decide if I wanted my number 10 to be this one or the other, which I will say next. And the honorable mention is the Banshee at Kings Island. So I really like this ride. It's my favorite inverted coaster that I've been on because I've only been on two as of right now. So the reason why it didn't pass the next coaster on the list is because while it is very fun and intense, it does have that little rattle and it's kind of annoying. When you go down the first drop, you really get a headbang. And since the restraints don't stay where they are after you put them down, the intensity at the first drop makes the restraint come all the way down, which is kind of uncomfortable when you're sitting in the brake run. So that's why I didn't make it into the top 10. But the number 10 coaster is going to, this is probably a very unpopular opinion, but Flight of Fear at Kings Island, the same park. I really like this ride because even though it does kind of have a rattle a little bit throughout the ride, depending on what seat you're on, it's really fun because I like the theming and the story, even though the acting and the videos and the queue is kind of, cheesy. I still very much enjoy the story, and the ride is pretty fun too. Coming up in the number 9 spot is Cornball Express at Indiana Beach. Most of you probably haven't even heard of this ride. It's at a park which is basically in the middle of nowhere, but it's one of my home parks called Indiana Beach. They got a few pretty good coasters, and my favorite there is called Cornball Express. This coaster is packed with airtime. If you sit in the back, there's tons of moments where you just get so much airtime, it just feels like it shouldn't even be legal. It has a lot of airtime for a CCI, in my opinion. I mean, there are some other CCIs that have pretty good airtime, but the other CCIs that have pretty good airtime, I've only got to ride like 2 or 3 times. So that's why none of them made this list. But Cornball Express is probably the most underrated ride on this list, maybe other than Flight of Fear, but it's also one of the most unknown coasters out there because it's in a park that's also pretty much unknown. At the number 8 spot, we have Thunderhead at Dollywood, another really good wooden coaster. So this is by GCI, and it actually recently, as of now, just got retracked, so it might be a bit smoother than it was the last time I rode it. But the reason why it isn't higher up on this list is because while it is a very good GCI with pretty intense airtime moments, it is a little rough in some spots, especially the spots that are more fast. But the airtime is very enjoyable, and I like the intensity of all the turns because it is a GCI, and GCI is very much known for their intense turns and very good pops of airtime. In the number 7 spot, we have Orion at Kings Island, so another Kings Island coaster. This ride is really good. It's the first Giga coaster I've been on, and right now the only Giga coaster I've been on. While some people think it is a hyper because its height isn't 300, it does have a drop of 300, so I consider it a Giga. And the airtime isn't as great on this one, but the little bit of theming that they have is actually really great. I like the whole storyline that they made behind it, and most B&Ms on the drop you can feel a little bit of a rattle, but that's depending on what seat you're in. If you're sitting in the back row, you get some pretty good airtime moments on the airtime hills there are, while there aren't that many, and it does feel like it's missing a few elements. If you sit in the front, you also get some airtime, but on the final brake run, when you go into that last turn, you get some really good airtime if you're in the front. Next up on the list is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. I love this ride because it has so much airtime in the very short amount of time you are on the ride. This ride is also very smooth. While I do remember it having somewhat of a rattle, it's not really that much of a problem because it was only on the first drop and some faster parts. The airtime is very intense on this ride. The restraints don't really come down that much on the ride, so that makes it a lot better I don't really have much to say about that ride other than it has really great airtime. The next ride on the list is another Kings Island coaster. This is Diamondback at Kings Island. I like this ride better than Orion because it does have way better airtime when you're in the back row, and even in the front row it has great airtime too. It's also a lot longer, which makes it better in my opinion because Orion you wait a pretty long line for it, and then it's not really that long of a ride. And I love the intensity because unlike a lot of B&Ms, it actually is pretty intense on some parts. And the airtime is really good because you get like a floater and ejector mix. On the big hills, when you go up the first part of the hill, you get a bunch of floater airtime. And then at the end of the hill, it brings you up even higher in a really short burst and then brings you back down, which is a really cool sensation. Next up on the list is yet another Kings Island coaster. This one is Mystic Timbers. Even though a lot of people were disappointed about the shed because it wasn't as good as it was hyped up to be, I still really enjoy it. I like how there can be different things that happen when you go into the shed. Like, well, I won't spoil it, but there's different combinations of things that can happen, and that just really increases the re-rideability. It also has great airtime. I also like the theming when you're going up the lift. I don't know, it just really adds to the ride for me because it has like theming elements as you're going through the ride, kind of telling you what's happening. This is also very smooth because GCI does a really good job on making smooth wooden coasters. To start off the top three list, we have Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. This is one of the three only RMCs that I've been on as of right now, and it's my second favorite. This ride is also at Kentucky Kingdom, and like Lightning Run, it has a lot of airtime. It also has some really great inversions. I don't really have much to say about this ride either because the Kentucky Kingdom coasters I only got to ride like 5 times. Well, the major ones anyway. All I remember is that it was awesome, and even though it has a bunch of made up elements, I still really love the ride. In the number 2 spot, we have The Voyage at Holiday World. Now, this ranks really high on a lot of people's lists, and even on some people's lists, it ranks as number 1. But for me, it's the number 2 spot. I love how long this ride is, and I haven't got to get a night ride on it, so I haven't really got to experience how great it can be during the night. But I like all the tunnels, and it has some really great airtime. It used to have more airtime than any roller coaster in the world, but I'll get to why it doesn't anymore in a second. I love the intensity of this ride too. The first drop is really cool. When you go through the tunnels underground, there's also some really intense moments there. I also really like the 90-degree banked turns. They feel really cool when you're going through them at a really fast speed. And for my number 1 roller coaster that I've ever been on, this spot goes to Lightning Rod at Dollywood. This is by far the best coaster I've ever ridden. I haven't got to ride it yet with the new steel track that they put in, but I can only imagine that that makes it even better. Hopefully, now that they put in the steel track, the launch will be a lot more reliable because that ride was closed a lot, so I was very lucky to be able to ride it the amount of times I did. I love the airtime on this ride. There's just so much airtime, I can't even count all the airtime moments. I really love that first wave turn that you do after the drop. I don't know why, but it's just really cool feeling for me. I also like the very intense snappy turns. I also really like the theming in the queue. It really adds to the ride. And while I don't like the annoying safety message that plays in the queue, if you know what I'm talking about, you would probably agree with me. I still love the theming in the queue because of all the little details that they put in there. It just really adds to it. So that's my top 10 roller coasters as of April 2021. At the end of the coaster season, I'll do another top 10 roller coasters video to see how it compares to my old one after getting some new credits. So I'll see you guys next time.